My name's Leo and I'm an English boat builder and a sailor, and I'm on a mission to rebuild and restore this 108-year-old sailing yacht. Now, she is quite a well-known classic yacht with a very interesting history, but she's in total disrepair and in need of a complete rebuild. Now, I hope to get her shipshape and launched, get her sailing again, and eventually sail her all the way back to England where she was originally built in 1910. So far I've been doing mostly deconstruction work, and in my last video I was deliberating about whether or not I should replace the keel timber. It was a pretty difficult decision because the keel timber at the moment is a solid piece of teak, which is quite amazing, but it's got quite a lot of structural defects. So after lots of hard thought about ways to repair the existing timber and lots of long conversations with the experienced boat builders who I've worked with before, I decided that the responsible thing to do while I've got the boat open and so far deconstructed is to replace the timber now while I've got the chance, and to avoid that piece of wood having issues later in the boat's life. Well, I'm on my way to Port Townsend again. I'm going to look at some big pieces of Purpleheart which might be suitable for turning into a new keel timber for me.
I've been thinking about your keel since we talked about it the first time, and I've been walking that fine edge of whether it's better to try to save it or let it go.
Yeah.
But I think the truth is, in the end, it's probably better to do it now.
It's really tough, isn't it?
It is a hard one, yeah.
I'm back and forth on it all the time, you know. I'll go in there and look at the piece of wood and just think, oh god,
yeah,
it's so nice. Yeah, it's so nice to have teak in there.
I think this will work out well. I think having the scarf back here out of the way of all this loading here is a really good idea.
Yeah, it's better. If it was the other end, it would be right here.
Yeah.
The reason I came with this length is that's what they've actually got in the store right now.
Oh, okay,
so I'm going to go and have a look at it right now. I might just pay for it right now and get it set up tomorrow and just start.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting very frustrated at the moment. I'm not really able to go ahead until I've made a decision on this. I mean, it would be nice to have one piece. I don't think it's going to make a big difference to the boat or to its end value either.
No, I don't think it would. There are a lot of boats bigger than Tally-Ho that were built made up like this. No, I like the way this looks, Leo. I think you're on the right track. And I think as difficult as it is, I think it's probably a good idea to change out that keel because of the risk.
Well, these are the pieces, Purpleheart, that I'm looking at, and they're pretty massive. Just about the right size, really. But seeing them like this, it just looks so huge and unmanageable. Just over 12 by 16 dimensionally. It's one 26-foot length and one 14-foot length. I'll scarf them together, and that'll be Tally-Ho's new keel, in theory. Now, these are really beautiful pieces of timber, and I think they might well do the job for me. My only slight concern is that on this longer one, it's right on the edge of the heart of the tree. You can see from the radial grain here that this is the center of the tree, and that's the area where you're going to get a lot of splits coming out. If you've got boxed heart where this central area is in the middle of the piece of wood, then you're pretty much guaranteed to get splits out to at least the nearest face. But being right on the edge here, it's not so severe. If you compare it to the other piece of wood, this one, where you've got none of that heart in there. It's all heart wood, but you don't have the actual heart of the tree at all. You also have to look out for sapwood out on the corners of the piece, but it seems to be clear of that. These are two pretty amazing pieces of timber right here. So what I'm going for is to have the boat as seaworthy as possible, in as good as condition or better than when she was first built. Hopefully she's going to outlive me, and if this sort of work ever needs to be done again, hopefully it won't be for another 100 years or so. Well, the Purpleheart arrived in a truck from Edensaw. Edensaw's our local wood supplier, so they delivered it out here, which is great. have to try and actually get it on the rollers now and move it into the shed. Pretty heavy, I'd say probably 3,000 pounds this larger piece. That's about 1.5 tons. Yeah, we got a truck, we got some jacks, levers, rollers and boards, so I think we'll manage. Push it down.
One, two, three, four. Bottle of wine, you broke my back, and you broke my mind. I gave you 3 good reasons why I can't stay. 3 good reasons, red, white, and rosé. I'm not responsible.
What I've been doing this morning is looking at how the grain runs on these two pieces, working out which piece would be better where and which way up to have them and which way round to have them. I've made some decisions. I've turned a big piece around so it's in the right place, and now I'm just working out how long I can make my scarf. So these two pieces are going to be joined together to make one huge timber, and the scarf joint wants to be as long as possible because that will give as much strength as possible to the timber. So I'm measuring my keel, I'm measuring these pieces and going to do some calculations. Of course I'm measuring everything twice because if I mess this up, well, I can't mess this up. I really can't mess this up. So if you look at the back of the boat behind me, you can see that the line comes down from the transom, which I've marked with this long blue ruler, comes down and passes behind the back of the boat. But originally the stern post, which is this big timber which goes right up to the top of the boat and down to the keel, the stern post would have come out to this blue line just with a notch cut out of it for the propeller. So the stern post would have come down this blue line and ended about here where it sat on top of the keel. The keel will have come back to here. So while I'm taking my measurements here, I have to make sure I measure from this line so I can be sure that I'm going to make my keel long enough and have enough wood to work with. So that's another good reason for replacing the keel, because even if I had used this old one, I would have had to scarf in a big piece to carry it on aft up to this line.
Things I might say, I love you, bottle of wine.
Alright, well I'm just trying to work out the best way to shape my scarf. So the purpose of a scarf is to join these two pieces together with a lot of surface area, so it's a strong join. Now the purpose of this hook in it, to prevent the two timbers from moving away from each other in this direction. A square hook like this means that there's a very good resistance here to the timbers moving away. What it does mean also though is that if these aren't cut exactly right, you're quite likely to get a small gap here or here. If you angle the ends of the pieces and the hook, then when you put the pieces together, if you make everything very, very slightly oversized, when you tighten your bolts, it's going to really close up all these gaps really, really tight, which is great because that will stop any water getting in. However, the hook being slightly angled like this does slightly reduce the effectiveness of the hook and make it more likely that these might be able to pull away from each other. Only really if though they're able to go up and away and down and away. which is unlikely. I think what I'm going to do is something in between these two. Going to have the hook slightly angled and the end butts slightly more angled than the hook, which is going to be something like this. I'll also be putting stop waters in somewhere here, probably behind the rabbit. It's just going to be a small piece of dowel that will go right through the timber, and any water that comes in here will get that dowel wet. The dowel will expand and will seal up that seam. Stop waters are typically softwood that's going to swell up a lot. Now if you look at this hook scarf in the stringer that we took out, you can see that originally they did similar to what I was just talking about, with a slight bevel on the butts and slight bevel on the hook, but not so much that it's going to prevent the hook from doing its job. So what I've done here is made this template of the scarf joint that I'm going to do. Just over 6 foot scarf, the hook in the middle. Now I've ordered a massive 7-inch power plane, so that's what I'm going to be using to face all these sides and get these timbers nice and square and straight and level. But that's not going to arrive for a couple of days, and I want to scarf these together before that. So on this piece I'm going to use this template as the part of the scarf that I'm going to keep, and then when I use it on the other piece of timber, I'm going to use this template as the part that I'm going to cut away on that piece of wood. That way they're more likely to actually fit together if I've cut this template slightly off one way or the other, although they probably won't. So I've been thinking about how I'm going to cut the big scarfs in the keel timber and the rest of the shape of it, and I realised the tools I have really aren't going to be up to the job, so I went and splashed out a little bit and got myself a new toy. It wasn't cheap, but it's a good quality tool. Hopefully it'll last me a good decade or so, and it's pretty versatile. I'm going to be able to use this for a lot of the big timber jobs on the centre line of the boat and the framing and so on. To cut accurately with something like this, it's a lot easier if you got someone on the other end of the saw, and if you can have a handle coming off the end of the bar so that someone can guide where it's coming out of the other side of the piece of wood. So I'm going to try and figure out a way to put a handle on the end of this bar. You can buy them, but there's no one around here that's got them, and I haven't got a few days to wait for one to be delivered, so we'll see what we can rig up.
Time. Pull up a glass, sit for a while. Next thing you know, I got a warm glow. I love you, bottle of wine.
Bit of a quick bodge job, but I think it'll be strong enough. Hopefully it's pretty safe. It's got this guard here in case the chain snaps or anything pings off it. Alright, well I got Logan here helping me again today, and we're all marked up to cut the scarf. So it's time to get the chainsaw running and get cutting. Well, Logan and I have just roughed out the scarves. It worked pretty well. It would have worked much better if I had a ripping chain on it for ripping along the grain. The chain I've got was a cross-cut one. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get a ripping one in time, but I'm still going to try and get one for the rest of the work. So with this chain, it probably would have been quicker to chop down and then chop off the excess with an adze or a big axe. That would have been a lot of wastage, and this way I've got a couple of nice bits of Purpleheart left over spare, which hopefully I'll be able to use for something else. Now I've got to try and work out how best to cut this stuff, because it's pretty damn hard, and try and take it down to our marks and make it into a nice fitting joint.